Hi, everyone. This is Wayne Blakely from Know His Love Ministries. And I was privileged to be at Generation of Youth for Christ this year. And while there, a young lady came by the name of Yaneesha Giandra from Costa Rica. And she had something to share with me as she found out about the ministry. She showed me a picture of her looking very much like a man instead of a woman. And we got into a conversation, and she lived as a lesbian for 10 years, but leaning more towards a very masculine feel, almost appearing to be transgender. And I had the opportunity to ask her if she would do an interview with me. And we weren't able to set up a professional interview, but we did our best. And so there's a little background noise, and I'm just very happy that we can put this before you and have you find out a little bit about her story and how she came to engage with Jesus. So I hope you'll enjoy our conversation. This is a picture of Yaneesha not too terribly long ago, right?
No, it was about like 3 to 4 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so the picture would give the impression, just by looking at it, that you were trans, although in our discussion we're going to talk a little bit about the indications of you from a lesbian standpoint of view, but not necessarily moving into a surgical transition.
Yeah.
So, and you'll explain all of that, but I'm sure that viewers, with the current trends of things, the way they're going today, this has become a very interesting topic, and I just really appreciate your vulnerability.
So, yeah, I was born in Costa Rica. And at the age of 3, we moved to the United States. So I was raised 5 years in Boston and 6 years in Georgia. And pretty much my upbringing, I would say that it was nice because of, my grandmother was always around to take us out. Why I said my grandmother and not my parents, because my parents were very unstable in their relationship. Like, they would get back together, break up, get back together, break up. And so there was a time when my brother and I were living with my grandmother, and so she would be the one in charge of, taking us out and all of that fun childhood type things. So I lived with my mom, my grandmother, and my brother as well. So it was us 3 in the house, and my dad would come every weekend to take us to the park or just be with us. He would take us to church, and then on Sundays we would have our little park time with him. Yeah, I think I was 8 years old. I think that's 5th or 6th grade. When my teacher at school, she would bring her older kids to work with her. They could be around 17, 18. And so she would bring them to work. And for some odd reason, I would be staring at her daughter. And all my other friends in the classroom would be so mesmerized by her son. But I just kept staring at her daughter. And that was the first time when I realized that something was different with me. At that point, I didn't know that I was attracted to that woman. I just know that I couldn't stop staring at her, and I didn't understand why. Yeah.
It kind of rings true to me that often when the bonding doesn't take place that was really supposed to take place between a child and their parents, that we are already start navigating towards the element of mystery and interest and who we would choose to be close to. You were starting to feel actually in a way that about being a boy as opposed to a girl then?
I don't think it started then, because then as a little girl, I would, even though I would play with my brother, get dirty in the mud with him, I would prefer to be with him and his friends rather than being at home clean and playing with Barbies and stuff. Okay. And so But I was still like very feminine, I guess you could say, because my parents were still buying my clothes, right?
Okay, yeah.
So like it wasn't uncomfortable for me at that time to put on what they would have me put on that day. You know
Which
what I mean?
mindset was a little different than the clothing that you were wearing. It just
Exactly.
hadn't fully developed.
Exactly. What I do know is that at that time I would prefer to be with my brother and do whatever he was doing with his friends.
So, you went to church.
Yes, I grew up in the church. Both parents are Adventists.
Okay.
And so church and God was something that was very present at all times. I knew of God, I heard of him, but I didn't really know what he was really about, like on a deeper level. I just knew that we prayed and read the Bible every morning, and we also did it before going to bed, and on weekends it's church.
Wow.
So just like a ritual. So my teenage years, they were, well, I was homeschooled for a while, like 12, through the years of 12, 13, 14, I think. I don't really remember, but I know I was homeschooled and I was just always at home. And that was when like a lot of like the masturbation started to kick in. And I guess that's the period in my life where I could say that I was really addicted to like porn and like masturbation because I just could not stop doing it. That was like, that would be like my fun time for myself. Because when I was around 7 years old, I was sexually abused by my cousin. And so, man, so before that molestation happened, there were like various occasions where it would be like a big family event, let's say like Christmas or New Year's or something like that, or Thanksgiving. Our family, we have a very big family, like a lot of cousins and stuff. So at various times throughout the year, all of our cousins and aunts and everybody from my mom's side would get together, and he would be, and we would all navigate to his room for some reason. Why, I don't know, maybe because he was the older cousin and it was just fun to be with him. Because he would also have like video games and stuff like that. Whereas like rated R video games, where, you know, being a church-centered family, we didn't have that in our home. So when those big gatherings would happen, all of our cousins would navigate to his room. And there were various occasions when instead of having those video games on that we would play, he would have porn on. So the day of the molestation, that's how it started, because he was masturbating, and then other things.
Were you raped?
No, I was not.
Okay. I think it's interesting on a level of, you know, the experiences today are vast, and so I know a lot of parents today are wondering how do these things happen, and you know, there's, in our childhood, we're not always supervised, and there's a lot, when I even speak in churches today, people don't understand how these things came about. So here you are, where you're basically introduced to this, and on multiple occasions.
On multiple occasions, yeah. And I remember one of the main reasons why, like, I didn't want to tell my mom is because she was very insistent on me not getting close to guys. Like, she was very open about it, and she told me when I was younger, I got physically abused by various men, and so I don't want it to happen to you. So I need for you to not make sure that you're never alone with a guy. Make sure that you're never too close to him. Like, no sitting on nobody's lap. I don't care who it is. So she would say that to me very often. So when it happened to me, I was 7. So when it happened, I didn't get the courage or guts to tell her until I was 13 years old. And that happened randomly just one night when I went to bed, and it was just, I guess it was the Holy Spirit. I don't know what happened, but I just felt really, really strongly about it, where I felt like I needed to tell her, and something kept telling me, like, you need to tell her, you need to tell your mom, you need to tell her. And I started crying and everything, and I just couldn't stand it anymore. It was just something that was daunting me. So it was like at like 1 a.m, I went over to her room, and I woke her up, and I was crying, and she was surprised. She was like, "What's wrong?" And then I told her, I was like, "When I was little, so-and-so molested."
Do you think because of the introduction and the molestation essentially that's taking place, that there is this where you begin to gravitate towards to a woman, to females that would maybe be more nurturing and understanding? Or tell me what your experience was that drew you more towards women as opposed to men.
I feel like it's a compilation of things. And also, what I'm about to say is not me blaming anybody for like having like the fact that I was a part of the LGBT community. I'm not blaming anybody that I'm about to mention. That like I don't want them to feel like, oh, like she's blaming me for the fact that she went out and did this. No, that's not what it is at all. But because of those circumstances, the devil used that to manipulate, to manipulate my mindset and have me think a certain way. And that's when I decided to, go ahead and make the decisions that I further made in life. There are a few things. So the first thing could be that molestation. When it started, because that happened when I was around 7 years old. And then the second thing could be the fact that, the relationship with my parents, it was very unstable. And also my dad was like very, he wasn't emotionally available. Like he was there financially. He was an amazing provider. He was always working and made sure that we always had everything that we needed. But he wasn't emotionally available, and my mom was not either, because she suffered from depression for many years and still does. So the emotional unavailability from both of my parents, and then I guess that mixed with what the enemy put in my brain at that time, is what brought me to feel that attraction towards women.
At the same time, I'm thinking of the picture that you showed us in the beginning of our interview. You're drawn very much to a more masculine sense of being, and so you're drawn towards women, but you're developing in more ways and almost appearing as a boy. Can you explain to me? Was there a sense of power, or was there something that made you feel good if you began to look more like a man than a woman?
So in therapy, we actually was able to like dissect that, and we learned that the reason why I chose to have like this masculine, take on the masculine role instead of just being one of those lesbians. Is because I remember there was a specific thing that happened one day in my house where I saw like my mom trying to be like affectionate with my dad, and like he just brushed her off. And when I saw that, in my mind, I still remember it, I said, I'm gonna treat women how they really deserve to be treated. And so I feel like that mindset went with me for the rest of my life, because I felt like I was the one to be in charge, and to be that man that a lot of women complain about that they don't have.
Okay, that explains a lot.
Yeah.
But without you didn't start taking hormones and things to transition into an actual male.
I didn't start taking hormones or any of that, because remember I said it earlier that I grew up in the Adventist home. So I was fully aware and well aware that what I was doing was not okay. And so I felt like, okay, I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to go to that extent, because God created me as a woman. And, biologically trying to change anything, and like biologically, I feel like that would be like a slap in the face of God. Even though in reality it wouldn't even matter anymore, because I'm portraying myself as somebody else. So, might as well, right? It's interesting though, because at the same time, I didn't want anything to do with God, but yet I respected him in that sense. Like I knew, but yet it's like, when you just don't want to cross the line, you know what I mean? So like that to me would have been crossing the line.
And it would have an effect at some point in the future.
Exactly.
That solid basis.
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost as though now, if we navigate away from those things, the possibility of coming back into the reality of Christ, His Word, and His plan and design for you would be maybe at a lower percentage than it was by you getting the education and the Christ-centeredness that you did get when you were growing up.
Yeah.
I think that's really important to point out.
Yeah, and when I decided that that I didn't want anything to do with God was when my family found out that I was gay. I didn't come clean to them. I didn't come out to them. They found out. I was in a relationship for 4 years total with this person. And one day we went to a club, and this club that day was very packed. Like, you couldn't even walk. Like, you had to literally, like, have your body tightly on another person to be able to, like, get through to where you're getting through. So at one point, the friends that I were with wanted to smoke. And so we decided to go outside so they can smoke their cigarettes. And when we got outside, I realized that my bag was open. And, you know, checking my bag, I did not, like, my phone was not in there. So I was like, oh my goodness, somebody stole my phone. I can't believe it. And it was a brand new phone. Like, I had gotten it like the week before. So this was like a Friday night. So on Monday, right, coming Monday, I used to work at Hewlett Packard. My mom worked there as well in a different department. So we have like this chat thing where all the HP employees could communicate with each other. So my mom sent me a message, and she's like, Yaneesha, can you come up to my floor, please? I would like to speak to you. When she sent me that, I knew automatically what it was. Like, I knew it had something, because I was living, and I was living as a lesbian for 3 years before they found out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. At home?
No. Actually, I didn't even mention the at home part, but I'm going to tell you about that later.
Okay.
No, it was for 2 years before they found out. So as soon as I saw that message, I knew what it was related to. I went upstairs, no hi nor nothing. She just says, is so-and-so your girlfriend? And I said, why are you asking me that? And she said, I'm going to ask you again, is so-and-so your girlfriend? And I said, I didn't say anything. I just stayed quiet. And she said, you know, if you need help, I can get you help, right? We can like look for a psychologist or something. Like, I'm here for you, and I can get you the help that you need. But when she said that, it was very offensive to me, because I'm like, I'm not mentally ill. Like, I don't.
Now?
I was 18.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm not mentally ill. Like, I don't need a doctor to come look at me. So, you know, even though she was trying to love it, like support me and be there for me, I was offended by that comment, because I thought she was trying to say that I was mentally ill. So, so that happened, and, you know, I let her speak and go on, but she tried to do it in the most loving way that she could. And then, you know, walking back down to to the department that I worked in, I started getting a lot of text messages from my family members that were sending, you know, a whole bunch of Bible verses, and that was so annoying as well. And then I got one from my dad, and my dad's message said, I'm on my way. And that was terrifying to me, because my dad is the most religious person to exist on planet Earth in my world, right? You know, I was scared of, you know, I didn't tell them because I was scared of being rejected. I was scared of being judged. I was scared of them not, you know, being proud of me anymore. Yeah. You know, like not wanting anything to do with me because of that. Right. So
you're set up for rejection, exactly. And it's happening.
Exactly.
And it's beginning to feel that way because all you're hearing is religion.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So, then, yeah, I was in my first relationship with a woman for 4 years. I feel like it was the healthiest and most stable relationship that I had ever in my entire life. Like, we would fight about nothing. And when we would fight, it would be things that are like meaningless. It was just like, why didn't you wash the dishes? Like, we moved in together and everything. And so, yeah, I was 18, and that lasted till I was like 22 years old. And the thing about it is that even though it was the most healthiest relationship, like I would get bored because of it. Like I remember her telling my best friend, I was like we don't fight, like everything is just okay all the time. I need to fight about something. And so like I was unfaithful to her. I cheated on her various times, and I guess went out my way to look for reasons to like fight and not make the relationship work. So
Why do you think you were doing that? Why was it not okay to be okay?
I guess because of my parents not having a stable relationship.
Yeah.
And so,
What's wrong with something's weird here?
yeah. And so like subconsciously, I just went out my way to make it not be a great relationship.
And you're living in the vicinity of your parents during this 4 years?
No, I moved out when I was 18 years old. As soon as I got the job at HP, I told my dad that I was going to live with this friend that I met at work. I lied and told him it was a female, but it was actually a gay friend. And before having met him, I was only in relationships with men. Well, I only had one boyfriend at the time when I met him. Before then, it would just be like kisses or like random things with guys. But when I met him, I told him that I was having these same-sex attractions, that, but I had never experienced it. And so he said, say no more. I'm here to help you, and I'm going to take you out and see if being with women is what you really like. So I met the woman I was with through him. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
All right, so that's intriguing. And so you're in this relationship, and now you're cheating. And what's that doing to the relationship?
And now the funny thing is, like, I was the one accusing her. Like, she was oblivious to the fact that I cheated on her. And the relationship was toxic because I made it toxic. Even though I was the one cheating, I was accusing her of cheating. And I would want to go into her phone and check to see if she wasn't cheating on me as well. And so it got very chaotic after that. And then we somehow emotionally disconnected because we started a business together.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we were always working with each other. We lived with each other. We were always with each other. So even though we were with each other, emotionally, we weren't there anymore because I was talking to other people, and we were still together, but I was just emotionally not there. And then she was just a very kind person that she was just still supporting me with the business because it was my idea. And she was just there, always helping me. And I thank God that, throughout the changes and me having changed and everything, we're still friends now to this day.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
But that relationship ends and you go on to others?
That relationship ends because I find somebody else to be with. Okay. Yeah, so I move out of the house with her to be with somebody else.
So your experience as a lesbian is over this course of 10 years.
Correct.
These relationships kind of come and go. And at the same time, you're playing this male role. Mm-hmm. And does that transcend into the work and family environment, the male and the masculinity? Were you saying anything with that to other people around you?
What do you mean exactly, saying?
Were you, from a lesbian standpoint and taking on this male role, were you trying to say anything imposing that you have greater strength and greater power than just an ordinary woman has? Was there a method to your madness, I guess is what I'm asking?
Not really. My mindset was all about girl power, and that we really don't need men for anything. Okay. We're girls and we could do things on our own, and that guys are useless. And so that was my train of thought.
I see.
Yeah.
And so that would even add to why you would seek to look more like a man, too, with the power that comes with that, and still being a woman, but appearing to be somewhat masculine.
Exactly, because like I felt like I needed to take on that role of masculinity to like treat these women the way they deserve to be treated, like be that guy that they never had in their actual lives. That's why it was more interesting to me. Like I was always more intrigued to and interested in like straight women. That's how it started, really. I used to catfish people online on this. It's not a game. It's this virtual world called Second Life. Have you heard of it?
Mm-mm.
No, never. So on Second Life, you can really be whoever you want to be. Like if you want to be a woman, a man, a cat, a dog, a child, you can choose whoever you want to be in this virtual world.
Wow.
Yeah, in this virtual world, it's like other people are on there as well. Like you communicate with real people. It's kind of like The Sims.
Okay.
Have you heard about the game The Sims?
Uh-huh.
But real life, like the other avatars of people that you connect with in that virtual world, they are real people somewhere in the world. So I created this guy named Kyle. He was 26 years old, and I was 13 at the time. This is when I was still living with my parents. So I started doing that before actually moving out and actually being with someone in real life. So I did this from age like 13 to up until age 19, 20. So I would just be in these relationships, long distance relationships with women. They would think I was a 26-year-old man, but really I was a closeted 13-year-old girl.
So to any parent listening to this, they're thinking, "Oh my word! Probably my teenager or the kids in my house may be involved in things like this." How does a parent go about? What would have circumvented what you had done? Would there have been anything that would have made any sense to you while you were doing that would be suggestive as to it not being healthy or wise? That would have worked, or did you just have to go down that road and experience it?
I feel like I had to go down that road and experience it because I have this thing where if people tell me not to do something, I want to do it even more. Because to do those things, I would really have to go out of my way. Like I would wait till midnight to make sure that my parents were asleep to go get the laptop that was in the kitchen because we weren't allowed to have computers in our bedroom. And to get the laptop, it would be past our parents' room, and the door was always all the way open. And so I would use it till like 4 a.m, because I knew that my dad would get up around 5 to pray, and then have to take it all the way back to the kitchen and then come back to my room.
You're not the first person that I've heard this from. Which is really interesting. And so parents, be aware, that kids will find a way.
Regardless of what they would try to do. Because I feel like they did start seeing signs. Like I cannot speak to my best friend anymore because like my dad even questioned me about it. Like, why are you guys always together? Like, what is it with you two? Like, are you guys together? Like, what's happening? And that was when I was like 12, and I didn't even know like what to respond to him because I didn't even know what was going on with me. Like being gay wasn't introduced to me until like further on in my teenage years, like 15, 16. So like at 12, 13, when I was dealing with this, like remember I was homeschooled. So I had no idea what this was. And so it was very confusing to me, and I couldn't really like pinpoint what exactly was happening to me.
Yeah. Yaneesha, how old are you now?
I am 29 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that.
Really?
No, not at all.
How old do I look?
I would have said 25.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You have all these experiences. They become very much what the LGBT world's all about. You're having that life, that experience. And today, it's just almost impossible in the minds of grandparents and parents who are looking at this and going, can this end? Will this end? And clearly they're praying.
Mm-hmm.
What happened
What
I mean,
happened?
did you get a lightning bolt from heaven? What happened?
So the following thing happened. Like right before COVID started, which was like 3 years ago. Well, now 4 years ago. It's 2023 now. So I started getting very depressed. Like I would start crying randomly for no reason, and I would sit and try to think, well, okay, let's like try to make sense of this. Why are you crying? What's happening? Why are you sad? And nothing would come to mind because I had the girl. I was financially stable. I had my own car. I'm an entrepreneur. My business is doing amazing. I can travel whenever I want. But yet there was this deep sadness inside of me that I couldn't pinpoint. So I started to, go to therapy. And in therapy, the first day of therapy, my therapy asked me if I believed in God. And I told her that I did. And she said, is it okay if we involve God in our therapy sessions? And when she did that, I told her, yeah, it's fine. We can involve God in my therapy sessions. I believe in God. And so we would pray before the session would start, during the session, and after, right? And in one of these sessions, she prayed and asked God to show me what his will is for my life. And so when he did that, I'm sitting there with her like we are now, and eyes are closed because we're praying. And she said, God, please show Yaneesha what your will is for her life. And he showed me a vision. I literally saw a vision. And I don't know if we have time for me to tell you the entire vision, or do you want me to get to the end of it?
Yeah, share what you're comfortable with.
Okay.
I'm sure we'd like to know.
Okay. So in that vision, I was like hanging off this cliff, and I was so scared. Like I felt, even though I was sitting in front of her, like I am with you now, I felt like I was hanging off that cliff. I was terrified. I never felt that scared before in my entire life. And I'm hanging off this cliff with both hands, and I try to look beneath me to see if, what am I going to fall, if I fall from here, like what am I going to fall on or into? And it was total blackness, pitch black. And so I was scared, but my hands are slipping. And, I'm crying now because I'm really terrified. I'm crying in real life. And my therapist was like, are you seeing something? And I said, yes. She was like, okay, tell me what you're seeing. So as I'm going through this, I'm telling her, what I'm seeing. So I'm trying so hard to hang on to this cliff, and one of my hands slipped, and I'm like so terrified. And she's like, you should let go. And I said, no, but I can't let go because I don't know what's below. Like I can't let go. I'm scared. I might die. She said, Yaneesha, it's okay. Just take a deep breath, and we're gonna let go. So I let go, and when I let go, I felt like this nice coldness over me. Like, like when it's very hot, like on a hot summer day, and you just want to jump in a pool or something. Mm-hmm. That's how it felt, like just this nice coldness. And I realized that, when I opened my eyes, I was in this body of water. And so I swam like underneath the water in this ocean. I swam to the light. There was a light, and I got to this beach. It was the most beautiful beach I had ever seen in my entire life. And when I came out the water, I was no longer wearing my clothes. Like I had long hair, and I had on this white long dress. And to my left, walking on the beach to my left, I saw my husband and my son. And I didn't see their faces. Like I don't know who they are, but I knew that they were like a part of me, like they were mine, like they were my family. But I didn't walk to them. I kept walking straight, and the beach turned into like this forest, and the sky and the forest opened up, and Jesus was there with his angels. It was God and him and like the angels, and it was like the angels were so happy. Everybody was just like having a heavenly party. They were just so happy for me. And then God looked down on me, and he said, well done, my good and faithful servant. And that felt amazing. And so when he said that, the skies closed up again. And I turned around and my family was now coming towards me. And so that's where the vision ended. I opened my eyes and I was still crying. And, my therapist was crying as though she was in tears. But I was very upset though. She was like, Yaneesha, that was so beautiful. Like, why are you not okay? And I said, because I don't know how to be what God wants me to be. I don't know how to be a woman. I literally said those words. I do not know how to be a woman. And she said, you don't need to worry about that. God is going to help you with that. And one of my biggest takeaways from this is that during our session, we've never mentioned anything about my sexuality, even though it was very evident, that I was gay because I looked like a boy. Even though it was very evident, the therapist in no moment mentioned or asked or questioned nothing about my sexuality, because I went because I was sad and I needed her to help me be happy. So this vision was random, okay? It was like there was no it was just random. Like God just placed that in there randomly. So I knew it had to be from him, because nobody was talking about my sexuality. You know what I mean? So that's what happened. But I was upset because, I even brushed it off. I brushed it off and I tried to continue my life. I was in a relationship with a woman at that point, a different one. But, every day I was reminded of that vision, and I felt guilty now, like deliberately knowing that God spoke to me directly. And, I was still deliberately out here living against his will.
How long did it take to have this residual thought about this vision and changes that would come about in your life? Making a decision for Christ, or is that when it began to happen, or?
No, I guess we could say I broke up with the person I was with at that time, like maybe 4 to 6 months after I saw that vision. And then I stayed single for a while because I kept going to therapy. And I also it's interesting because I started to study the Bible. I started to do that because one of my childhood friends sent me a link to this YouTube sermon series called Relationship Goals. And it was about how, what God wants for our relationships, what a relationship should look like based on the Bible and God's intentions for our relationships. Now, it had been 10 years without me going to church or anything. And I would read my Bible every day, but I would just make sure not to be around church people or go to church or anything like that. But this topic really caught my attention because relationships have been something that I had not been good at. Even though they were, I had 4-year relationships, 2-year relationships, 1-year relationships. We could say that they were fairly stable, but there was just always something that was just not there. I wasn't completely happy. So I was interested to know what God thought about relationships, what he wanted, what he intended relationships to be for us, what it's supposed to look like based on the Bible. So I was like, well, the way I do relationships have not worked. So let me see what God has to say about this. And so watching that series led me to continue to read my Bible on my own. Yeah.
Okay. And so you're learning, I take it you're probably praying.
Yeah, so
pray at this point.
After work, I would rush home because I would want to, watch one of these sermons from these series. And it was when I felt happy, it would be my hour. It would be my happy hour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because, I felt it's very sad. very sad, like a very lonely feeling in my chest. And like these hours of like being with Jesus was the time in my life when I actually felt happy. And I prayed to God, when I decided to make the decision to, try to do what he wants me to do according to the vision that I saw. I said, God, if what you showed me is real, I need for you to not let me get involved with any other woman or man until you allow me to be with that man that you showed me in that vision.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
and I said, because I know that I could be praying this right now, and then tomorrow I might see somebody that I'm attracted to and go for it. So if what you showed me is for real, don't let it happen. Please and thank you. Have a nice day.
Now, are you starting to share this with any family members or because, I'm sure there's some people that have been praying for a while for you, right?
Yeah, so that's actually a funny story in itself because, this year I decided to go back to church. So that happened 3 years ago. So I've been single for 3 years, 4 years now because we're in 2023. So he kept that promise to me that I asked him for. And in January of last year, I wanted to go back to church, but I said, God, lead me to the church that you want me to go to. I don't want to just go to any church. Lead me to a specific church. I gave him like 3 things that I needed that church to have. And for me to know that if that church has those 3 things, then it's the church he wants me to be in. So I get to the specific church. The 3 signs and things that I asked for were present at that church when I went that day for service. And on my way out, an elder from church came to me and, introduced himself. And previously they were talking about that they were going to have Bible studies. And but those are one of the 3 things. I needed to relearn everything that I had forgotten during these past 10 years. And so I said, hey, can you please sign me up for Bible studies to this elder? And he said, yeah, sure. What's your name and number? So I gave him my number and my name. And when I say my name, he's kept staring at me and he said, by any chance, are you related to the food industry? And I said, yes, I have a vegan pastry shop. It's called Gia. And he said, we have been praying for you. And I was like, what do you mean? And for what reason and why? Like, I don't know you. And he said, 2 years ago, one of your suppliers put in a petition that God would restore your faith and bring you back to church one day. So every Sunday and Thursday mornings at 6 a.m., the church elders have gathered to pray for you since 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And 2 years ago, at that time was when I started feeling depressed, and that's when I searched for therapy.
The counselor.
Exactly.
And got the vision. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So your family must start to be overjoyed at this point. Or is that it hadn't happened yet?
The majority.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, there's always backstories. Yeah.
Yeah.
Backstories.
Yeah.
Yaneesha, you're living proof that, that God intervenes as a person who has an open heart. And your heart was definitely receptive to God. It's like you had been waiting. And God had allowed you, certainly let me go down roads that we didn't need to go down. So is life blissful today and without desire or temptation as it relates to your past?
Okay. Temptations are still come my way. Like, there has been times when I actually want to go back to the life that I used to live because it's what I'm used to. It's hard to, when your mind has been programmed a certain way for like a decade. Mm-hmm. It's hard to, transition out of that and be able to stay, and to get to that end goal. It's just like, with addicts, how they have relapses sometimes. I feel like in my case, I can I feel okay relating it to the same thing because, I was addicted to women. I was addicted to portraying myself a certain way. And so sometimes I actually do miss that. But when I think about what God has for me and that real joy can only be found in Jesus, that's what helps me to stay forward. But if we're keeping it real, it has gotten difficult and temptations have come my way.
So do you have any method of accountability, or what do you do if you're, I understand from my own life, if you get a little depressed or you're alone at some point, those things can creep back into your mind. And sometimes for me, it's like, who can I call? Because, as a person who's experienced, conversion now, people think, oh, you've been delivered, and so therefore these things wouldn't happen to you. On what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I do have an accountability partner. It's my aunt.
Nice.
So whenever I feel like I want to do something, I reach out to her and I tell her what's happening. And so she would just hear me out. And if I would feel okay with praying, then she would pray with me. But mostly she's just there to like hear me out, for me to express what I'm actually feeling, and then help me to like work through what's the actual issue. Because sometimes I feel like reaching back or wanting to go back to that is a symptom of something. In my case, it's just a symptom, but there's actually something deeper that's happening. So with her, what we do is try to figure out what's the actual issue. Like, am I stressed because of something? What is actually happening?
What's generating?
Exactly. That could be one case. And then there's times when I'm literally okay, and then a beautiful woman just shows up and wants to engage in conversation, then makes it known that she is attracted to me and wants to, hang out. And
Satan never stops reminding us of our past.
Exactly.
A friend of mine says, I was baptized, Satan wasn't.
Exactly. And it's so annoying.
Yeah, really annoying.
It's so annoying. Like, can you stop? Yeah. And the most, I had a recent situation where that happened a few months ago. And because of that prayer that I did to God to not have him let me get involved with anybody, it's the reason why nothing has happened yet with anybody. Because if it were for my own strength or my own will, I would have already fallen back to it. Right. Not because I wanted to, but because the flesh is weak. And if we don't go to God for these things, then he really, he can't help us if we don't want to be helped. But
right. We need to pay attention to his reminders.
Exactly.
Otherwise, God will not forcibly stop you from doing something that you want to do.
Exactly. Like, if I honestly really wanted to do it, he would let me do it if I would retract from that prayer. And tell him, hey, remember that time I prayed and I asked you this, that, and the third? I don't want it. Like, if I were to say that, I knew that he would let go and let me. But he has kept his promise, because I was open to allowing him to help me for the same reason, because I knew myself. And I told him I know myself. I know I'm going to want to come back to this. So I need for you to help me to not let me go back to that.
But Yaneesha, in the state of affairs in the world and the LGBT narrative that's running today and the criminalization of counseling that's happening, what are your comments as it relates to somebody who desires to go and seek counsel from a Christian counselor? Should they be limited in what they can do for you, or how they can advise you? Or is that do you see that as stripping away a person's personal freedom and religious freedom, for that matter?
Yeah, no, I feel like, because let's take my case, for example. I went to therapy and she asked if I believed in God. And we prayed about the situations that I went to therapy for. We didn't pray about my sexuality. She wasn't trying to change me. We did not touch that topic at any moment. but God was involved in the therapy session. And that's when God spoke to me on a different topic than what she had for me. You know what I mean? So I feel like robbing God of the opportunity to speak to us on a personal level is not okay, because he wants to help us and he wants to fill that void that we all have. The void I have may not be the same as yours, right? But honestly, I feel like we all just want to be loved because we were created by love and we were created for love and to love. So, and God is the only one that can give that to us because he is our creator. So to rob him of the opportunity to even have a conversation with us, I feel like that is devastating, and I wouldn't want that for anybody to not have that chance.
Yeah, I think that it also is impinging upon our constitutional right for religious freedom to and I respect those who are LGBT and have decided that this is what works for their life. I'm not going to get involved and interrupt that, but should someone want to leave that, they should have the freedom of choice to go and talk to someone. Like maybe in your situation, they really didn't talk about sexuality, but in some cases that they may want to. And of course, the Bible has things to say about sexuality as well. But I am really excited about what God has done for your life and the journey that you're on, and I think that you give hope to others. And so I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Is there any way that somebody could get in touch with you if they wanted to ask you more questions?
Yes. So my Instagram is I am Giandra. It's it's at IAMGIANDRA. I am Giandra on Instagram.
That's wonderful. Thank you again. God bless you and all that you do. And I've been very thankful and grateful for this time together.
Thank you. Likewise. I appreciate it.